Kia ora everybody, welcome back to Kōrero with Creators. So in a previous episode, by the time this comes out, we have already talked to Lee Learns Reo. So that was a creator who was sharing her journey learning te reo Māori. So today I thought it would be quite cool to show, the other side of the coin, the teacher. So our guest today uses their platform to bring awareness to and discuss all things te reo Māori, Māori language, Tūterangiwhiu, aka Online Reo Agency. Kia ora e hoa, welcome in.
Tēnā koe, o tira kia ora tātou.
Firstly, just let everyone know who might not know who you are, introduce yourself.
Pai e hoa. Koe, o te rapa. Koe, ko Tūterangiwhiu tōku ingoa. My name is Tūterangiwhiu. Koe, ai nipa ko te arawa te waka, mai make tū ki tonga riro. Koe te rapa te nuinga o ngā hononga. O tirahi hononga anō ki mai taitama tāne ki te taitama wahine. Te whānuitanga o ngā hononga. Koe, me ki he tangata no te arawa. Quite often calling with being connected to te arawa. Te rapa just how I am.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, this is always the first question I ask everybody who comes in here, and depending on how you are, it can either be a simple question or a very complex question, but what does being Māori mean to you?
Pai, well, I suppose simply put, everything. Kia aune, to me, being Māori is everything to me. It determines how I go about my life. In my opinion, the decisions I make, how I make those decisions, I'm clear.
Yeah, nice and simple. And what has been your experience in te ao Māori? Your upbringing, has it been from day one? Is it something you've had to come to throughout your life? What's your history there?
Pai, tēnā koe hoa. To the surprise of many, I did not come up through kohanga reo. I did not come up through kura kaupapa, all of these things. I was born in Rotorua, so I was born in Rotorua, but I was raised and schooled in Sydney, in Western Sydney.
Oh, right.
So from Parramatta all the way out to Blacktown, that's sort of the places that I stayed in. I was schooled. So I didn't, it wasn't until, I stayed later on in life, but I was 18,
right.
The old age of 18. So before my wife came along and before our tamariki came along,
Yeah, nice. And so this is obviously a series about content creation. So what has been your relationship with social media?
For me, it was hard. It was real hard. Not so much the views and all that.
Right.
See, that's why people just think I'm I must be that or
Right.
but I don't mean to be. But it was more so who would want to listen to me? Why does anyone listen to me?
What sort of inspired you to start making your content then? Like obviously you sort of on behalf of the courses and the real lessons that you are advertising of sorts, but is anything else sort of keep you posting on the basis that you post?
I suppose a lifetime goal of mine is to help 1 million people in their journey learning te reo Māori, speaking te reo Māori, using te reo Māori.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's going to be real hard to do through courses alone.
Right.
So what better way than to use this this machine of social media?
Yeah, that's actually quite cool. Actually, do you have a sort of a method of tracking that? How's that? How does that?
No, not yet. Eventually, I will think of something.
I mean, I guess you can, in the simplest terms, you can use your following as a general form of basis, I imagine, because anyone that consumes your content has in some shape or form consumed something te reo Māori. Like you said, you were like sort of, why would anyone want to listen to me? What's this going on here? Why should I even do this? But obviously now, and I see you pop up quite often. I mean, you're one of the creators that I like to follow as someone who's also still on their real journey, and I always sort of enjoyed how relatively just straightforward, not too much fluff, you're just kind of like, here's how it is and this is what it is, here's a kupuho or something like that to share, and it's relatively straightforward, so it's easily digestible. What were your initial sort of responses to the growing of your following, when all of a sudden people are like, hey, yeah, they obviously resonate for similar reasons and we're going to keep watching this guy and asking questions and engaging with your content? What was that initial response that you had?
I think more so was just I suppose, for lack of a better term, it was a bit of an out of it feeling.
Right.
I was quite surprised actually that many people, sort of wanted to hear what I had to say. I thought it was pretty hard.
Yeah. And do you sort of, when it comes to posting content, do you have any sort of what's the word there? A layout, a template? Do you just kind of post as you feel fit? Do you is there any sort of guided element to the way you post online?
Oh, not so much, Eva. Not so much. Just whatever pops up, whatever I feel like talking about. Quite often things will pop up from other videos or comments that I see online, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a nice and simple thing that I can just shed a bit of light on.
Right. Yeah, and because there is this element of obviously wanting to encourage people to come, do a proper course. Is there sort of a barrier on what you won't share? You're like, actually, I won't share this sort of stuff because that's best covered in a proper educational setting.
Not so much, Eva. Not so much. Not anything off the top of my head. Maybe. No, not so much. Typically what sort of pops to mind at first are like Kōrero Tūterangiwhiu,
right,
or Kōrero Atua, or things like that. But things are just so easily accessible now.
Yes.
Anyone can just search on Google. So if anything, I'd rather put out a bit more information. Perhaps
right.
Not that I want to say anyone's correct or incorrect, but maybe right. From the perspective that has been shared with me, just to make sure that perspective is out there as well. So
yeah. No, that's quite cool as well, and because obviously there can be a tricky thing to balance. Obviously, as someone who's trying to essentially sell something, that you want to still seem approachable, from a marketing perspective, but it's quite nice that you obviously are like, well, to be fair, you share anything, it could still encourage someone to take it that step further and learn further, and I always sort of see your content as, you'll never, it's going to be, you probably won't be able to learn a language by watching someone's 1 minute videos, right? They're just sort of like little tidbits or little helping hands in the grand scheme of a real journey, of a language learning journey. And of course, you're still going to have to require a proper learning process to get to the stage of fluency, if we're going to use that, So yeah, I'm not surprised that there's not actually too many things that you can't hold back given the nature of the content. Obviously, the internet, anyone who's posts on the internet is probably pretty aware of the tendency for hate comments to arise, and that, what's been your experience? Because obviously I can't imagine your content in general would inherently encourage contents of a negative form. Maybe people disagreeing with your kōrero, but obviously things Māori online tend to attract hate regardless of the content. What's been your experience with that, and how have you had to sort of learn to navigate that, or how has that affected you?
More often than not, Eva. I just hide the comments,
right.
Unless everyone gets there first, and then I was like, okay, yeah, maybe give them a dong,
right.
But if I can get to it first, then yeah, I'll just hide it. I think most people don't actually mean the things that they say
right
online. They just want to, I don't know, get a bit of attention, maybe talk to a few people.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what I do. I don't have time for that stuff.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right too, because I think a lot of people they just want the reaction, And I always say to people, which is why I asked this question for anybody who's maybe thinking about getting into posting videos of any kind online, and normally the initial concern that people have is, how am I going to handle the hate? I'm like, well, the hate is inevitable, and so so many people that I've talked to that do this sort of posting thing relatively often, you know, they're like, you know, no one's got time for that, you know. And if you're relatively confident in yourself, you know, then that sort of comment really isn't probably going to bother you at all, right?
But I will say though that at the times that I do feel like responding, usually it'll be in the sense that I can say something funny,
right?
And then I'll make a video out of it as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a comedic banter, right? I've seen a couple of videos like that. So you said, you know, you actually weren't brought up in Kohanga and all that, and 18 is where you started coming in this. Explain a little bit more for people who are curious, particularly for those who, you know, like you said, might be surprised to hear this information, given your sort of, you do have a very beautiful way of speaking, Reo, you know, and it's a sort of a way of speaking that would seem like somebody who was brought up speaking it. Explain a little bit more in detail for people, like what was your journey with Te Reo Māori, you know, and what was the sort of environment that harbored this ability and knowledge that you have now?
So I finished high school, and then I think I went straight to Te Whare Wānanga Waikato, and I took part in Te Tohu Paitahi, which was great for me at the time. You know, again, I would say that there's really no better way than to do or to be within an immersion space. You know, if you are, when it does come to Te Reo Māori or anything really, anything that you want to get better at. But you know, again, I was at the age of 18, so you know, I had no tamariki, no wahine. Well, I had no other responsibilities, so you know, my auntie pretty much said, you either get a job or you go learn te reo. And I was like, I'm not getting a job, so and you know, that's you know how it started for me. It doesn't have to be this you know, this big call and this big yearning. You know, so I showed up to class, my first class, knowing nothing more than kia ora. I think I mentioned this on another kōrero, and Tētahi ngā tuahine, she, you know, we sat down and she looked at me and she said, no he aku. I was like a deer in headlights. No idea what she said. And, you know, it was sort of like, well, I need to know what she just said now. So, you know, then it just becomes this deep dive. Because, yeah, I would say that was probably the hardest, dumbest sort of way that I could have done that. You know, people, if you have the luxury of, you know, going into those spaces with a bit of kōrero, you know, maybe a'i or u, knowing I mean, none of that. So, you know, you already have a bit of a head start. But, you know, it's not like I just got there, went there for a week and, you can't play. No, I understand what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. So, just from memory, I think the whole course, or the whole kaupapa was about 8 months. So 2 years of content condensed into 8 months. And it took me 6 months to understand what was happening. Yeah, so if you feel like you can sort of do that for 6 months, you know, there would be times where, man, I would just be almost in tears. Because, yeah, it was just, you know, this is my language. Why can't I speak my language? Why isn't it clicking for me? Which was actually a big part of why I wanted to establish our own kaupapa. Was to remove that. To remove that part of the learning journey, of the learning process. So less people would be turned away. Yeah, that's cool. And you know, because it is, as someone who's been trying within the boundaries of my own schedules for all my life, luckily I'm nice and young, you know, but to learn ao reo, it has moments where you're like, whoa, you know, and like certain moments, like I remember when I was at, the biggest step for me in my journey was, I mean, I was learning it all through school, but not through like kohanga or anything, just like the sort of Māori unit through normal school system. And I was like, yeah, I kind of get stuff, I guess, you know, and then through high school was the same, but the resources at the time for my schools, they weren't great. So I kind of, for me, from what I remember, I just stay at like a sort of a baseline level for most of my
childhood right up until I went to university. When I went to university, you know, I jumped into proper university course for learning reo, and like all of a sudden it was like boom, all this knowledge was learnt in such a quick amount of time, and I was like, man, I can't believe I just spent 18 years and I feel like I've learned everything and more in 1 year. I'm like, where was this, you know, resource when I was growing up? But now I'm 18, so it's way harder than if I was, you know, under 10 or something and with a fresh brain for absorbing it. And I remember just being stoked though, because I made such great strides in my progress. And then year 2 at university drops you into full immersion. Now at the time, a young 19-year-old, I was like, oh no, you know, oh no, that's way scary. You know, I was like, that's crazy. I was like, how do we go from like, yeah, I can go to the shop, you know, saying you can go to the shop in Te Reo Māori to like full immersion. And I remember, and so unfortunately, I wasn't quite confident in myself at the time to continue. And then, you know, life circumstances changed and I moved back home, and then that was like that was my first major hurdle, was returning home to a whare that doesn't speak the reo. You know, you're surrounded by people who don't speak even basic reo, and all of a sudden this year and a half of awesome progress that I was so stoked with was gone. You know, it was really gone. And so I'd love to know, you know, as someone who's been through that yourself, you know, what would you recommend to those out there that I imagine hit those same hurdles? You know, they get to a point and then it seems to either plateau or it's making that real step up to really making that sort of next level. You know, like you said, 6 months it took you to figure out what the heck was going on, you know. What do you have any sort of advice for that?
Tēnā koe, absolutely. And you know, koe, just to touch on that too, it's not like 6 months and I was fluent. I was like,
right,
like 6 months and I heard what you said.
Right.
But absolutely. So, you know, and again, it's not like when I finished my year or 8 months of learning te reo that I was fluent.
Right.
Like you said, you know, I could say I'm going to the shops.
Right.
You know, a few basic structures. But really for me is, so, you know, when they're finished, I didn't hang around. I missed my whānau, so I went back to Australia to be with my mum and my siblings. And for me, it was the same. It was the same. You know, there was maybe one person I knew who spoke te reo,
right.
My uncle. But that was it, you know, I didn't see him much. So for me, what I sort of came up with was I would just, so at the time, you know, much like yourself, like there were minimum resources available.
Right.
Not like now. So, you know, I would listen to, I wouldn't really recommend it, but at the same time I would, because it was real hard. But I would listen to Wakaruia videos.
Right.
So, you know, that may be where my sound o te reo comes from. Was from listening to a lot of koe, or kaumātua, or our old people, Kōrero Māori, will speak Māori. So why is, for anyone who's listened to kaumātua speak, they speak very fast.
Yes.
Very fast. And they don't say full sentences. That's not to say that they're wrong, but that's coming from a space of, you know, they're talking to each other all day, every day, so they know what they're meant to be saying. And you get to a point where you may do this as well. So like myself, I can listen to someone talking. I already know what they're going to say. I already know what my response is going to be. So I can already sort of judge where the kōrero is going. And that's what they're doing. Right. So you don't have to say full sentences, but as a tauira or a learner of te reo Māori, we need the full sentence because that's what we've learned. Yes. We haven't picked up these little nuances yet that are so common within te reo. But for me, it was that, you know. So it was very difficult, but I found it very fruitful if you can get past the sucky parts.
Right.
But for me, unknowingly, what I did is that I would just talk to myself. I just talk to myself every day. So when I was in Sydney, I would I was a driver, so I would deliver, equipment to construction sites and so I would just talk to myself all day, every day. I would choose a sentence, today it's going to be kei te, and I'm just going to talk about things that I see.
Right.
So, kei te taiwaho, kei te hikoi, te tāne, kei te tākoronga, tamariki, the like. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything great, but, and then, as I would get better with those sentences, better with those structures, then I would try and say them faster.
Right.
Just so it's not so robotic and monotonous and kei te hikoi, te tāne, because that's probably how, many tauira are learning it, and kei te pai, that's fine. But, if you are maybe struggling to get a good flow within your kōrero, that's probably what's happening. You just need to practice, because it is very different coming from te reo Pākehā and your Māori, the shapes that your mouth has to make.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point to make too, because I see a lot of Māori get hung up about the need to maintain 100% grammatical correctness, and obviously there you've just sort of given an alternative opinion or a view on that, and I always say when I get approached with this question, when we speak English as first language speakers, we don't speak English in that perfectly grammatically correct way that we hear when, say, English second language learners speak, like when you listen to Europeans. Europeans speak like this, and you go, what? That's like the most bestest English ever, Like, we don't speak like that in real life, because that's not how real life, use of language works. Like you said, sometimes you just need to be moving on for time, like a good example you hear all the time in simple terms is, people, e pēhea ana koe. Most people just, pēhea, how are you doing? And there you go, one word to ask the whole question, and like, that's just what colloquial language speaking is like. And so it's probably good for people to hear, it's important that you learn that stuff so you understand it. And then as that skill and that knowledge develops, then it can be sort of stripped back a little bit. I mentioned to you at the beginning, a bulk of my audience are from overseas. The majority are from overseas. And so with that comes a lot of questions regarding our language. Now, the first one that people might like some clarity on is, are non-Māori allowed to learn te reo Māori?
Absolutely. Ka pai, absolutely. That's quite often prominent question. Absolutely. It's an unfortunate reality, I suppose, of our history as a people, of our culture. But I'll be honest, I was a bit bull-headed when I first started, with our kaupapa,
right?
Having it being, Māori only, and even that, some people may be quite surprised by that, but from a non-Māori perspective, you sort of have to be open to the reality that there's a lot of mamai, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain within our people, amongst our people, within our history, our culture, all of these things, and it was taken from many of our people, through the actions done upon our kaumātua when they were tamariki, the beating of our kaumātua, so that they wouldn't then pass on te reo Māori and our language, our customs, all of these things. So for me, it was a thing of, I didn't want the livelihood and the oranga of our people, our culture, and our language to be in the hands of others.
Right.
I wasn't a believer in that. I believe that it was for our people to bring te reo Māori back to life,
right?
To bring it back to the place of normality amongst our people. Until one of my tauira, they asked, would you prefer that te reo Māori died if Māori didn't want it? You know, that was quite a big pātai. That was quite a big pātai. And, you know, for me, I suppose it was the help to the realization that, you know, we need everyone on board.
Yes.
We need everyone on board to just to normalise te reo Māori. Yeah. And I have a plan, I believe. As you know, myself, I'm not a big fan of the term Kiwi.
Right.
You know, for me, I'm Māori.
Right.
Yeah, but for the benefit of our people and the benefit of our culture and our language, you know, te rapa, maybe things can be seen as particular phrases, particular terms, ne, te reo Kiwi pia.
Right.
Because, you know, there are terms that, you know, Māori, non-Māori use every day that they may not even, you know, the simple one, Kiwi.
Right.
So I think that would be, because, like, you know, and it was sort of around, not to get political, but, you know, it was sort of around the approach or the perspective as well of non-Māoris, like, can we vote for Te Pāti Māori?
Right.
You know, and that thing, so, you know, can I use te reo Māori if I'm not Māori? Can I speak? Can I learn it? You know, so maybe if we have a few terms, like, you know, I hear non-Māori, Pākehā tauiwi all the time, using whānau, kai,
Yes.
all of these different things. So, you know, maybe that would help remove some of those barriers and remove some of that, maybe not whakamā, but, you know, those aspects of speaking te reo Māori, sharing te reo Māori, using te reo Māori. Because, you know, it's not like we're going to forget, you know, te pūtaki or the origin or of those kupu. Kei te moana tātou, we know i ahunga i te reo Māori. But, you know, just to help remove some of those barriers, koe pā.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to throw that whakaaro out there?
Yeah, but, you know, I totally agree too. And I've heard in my travels, you know, similar circumstances happening with other indigenous cultures that are losing their own languages, you know, and if we take the broad category of Native American, you know, each of those different nations approach their cultural preservation in different ways, you know, and I remember being told by somebody that, you know, this specific nation of Native American, they are way more open with their sharing of their culture than others. And they also happen to be the most thriving, you know, it's the most alive. More people speak that language, more people are taking part in their cultural practices because they're less restrictive about it, you know. But I can also understand too the difficulty, and this is the same kōrero I've had throughout this series with the likes of moko, you know, a same sort of mamai there for Māori, and so really difficult for lots of Māori to feel comfortable, you know, passing the art form onwards to non-Māori, even though once upon a time we came from a time period where we did it, you know, but before the herding part happened, you know, and so a lot of Māori are still in that place where they have to recover and sort of heal from that. And one thing that I've witnessed firsthand was, like, during university, you know, lots of the international students took the first year te reo paper, for example, and the thing that I saw so many Māori have a hard time with, and I can understand why, you know, these, let's say, Europeans were coming over, and it's by this point, it's their third or fourth language, you know, like lots of Europeans are bilingual peoples given their geographical history, you know, and their upbringings. So by the time they get here to learn te reo Māori, it's not that hard. You know, their brains have already opened up that capacity for learning language. And so then for lots of us, it's like really hard because it's the only language we've ever had to learn outside of the language we were born with. So we're like watching people who aren't us learn our language faster than us, you know, and I could see a lot of people had a lot of struggles with that, like when I was in university, you know, and you find that lots of them don't make it to that second year, like myself, and lots of the second year can be made up of Europeans, and you just go, but it is at the same time really cool to see, because as we know, there is a political climate as well in this country that is of its own belief about things Māori, and so every time we see non-Māori from outside of our little country bubble learning our language, it puts also a little bit of inspiration, I think, in the psyche to be like, wow, look, obviously people who aren't even from here think it's an important thing to learn, you know, so why can't we as a whole? And then that's where it goes into, I think, your kaupapa, where I agree, you know, the more of us that can speak it even in small terms, you know, like the simple use of things like whānau and kai. You're right. At high school, you had all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds using those terms because they're just so casually used, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, for those who are non-Māori and, you know, are in these spaces, you know, it's not that you have to tiptoe around it or, you know, but maybe just be aware that, you know, just how maybe some of the Māori present may be feeling.
Right.
And it's, you know, you can if you want, you know, maybe help or, you know, if you understand something a bit better than others. But, you know, really it's just for non-Māori, it's something fun. You know, something that they want to do.
Right.
As Māori, you know, it's a lot of hurt that we're having to undo. It's a lot of emotions that we're having to process while we're learning. But at the same time, it's also something we feel we have to do.
Yes.
But, you know, again, it's not that that's your burden to carry. It's just something perhaps to be aware of within that space, and Māori Ma as well.
Yes.
Yeah? Unfortunately, we can't just get, ooh, let's go have fun.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is, man, you know, hearing some of the kōrero and some of the stories about the history of our people is like far out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's cool. And that's right, you know, it's just sort of a little bit of awareness, a little bit of, you know, being mindful of your surroundings. So while we're on the topic of international people, I get asked all the time, like, oh, from Māori and non-Māori alike, but like, oh, I no longer live in Aotearoa. Some Australia is as close as Australia, but quite often lots really abroad that are very curious about ways that they could learn te reo Māori abroad. You know, what would you recommend for people who live abroad to go about learning te reo Māori?
Yeah, well, there's nothing there, follow my TikTok. But, I would say, well, you know, yeah, being biased, but you know, it is difficult to, you know, because you want to guide people within the best direction. And it's not to say that there's, you know, some maybe less correct content out there, but there definitely is. But I suppose, you know, there are many different resources out there, books, podcasts, you know, TikTok pages, YouTube videos, all of those things. Really, I suppose whatever you can get your hands on. Yeah.
Would your courses as well, are they physically based? Can people, you know, use you as their teacher do you do like a Zoom style lessons? You know, is that an option for people?
Absolutely, well, absolutely. So pretty much all of our sessions are done online,
right?
Online via Zoom. Yeah, so we have tauira all around the world. A good majority in Aotearoa. We have a few in Ingarangi, we have a few in England, one in Singapore, I believe. They were in Dubai. But yeah, so we have tauira all around the world. Numbers are picking up here in Aotearoa as well. Just pretty cool. But absolutely.
Yeah. Now, this question, this next question can be kind of a sensitive topic for a lot of people. This one I see more often than not, particularly from Māori, less so the non-Māori, but it's about the cost of learning te reo Māori. You know, like obviously some resources are free, some resources are not. You know, what should people expect to pay, I suppose, to learn reo, you know, yeah, you know.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, I've no issues around this kaupapa. You know, for me, it's not, you're not necessarily learning. You're not paying for me to teach you te reo Māori. You're paying me to be there with you.
Right.
That's what it is. You know, the resources are there. For me, it's really your time. I'm trading you your money for your time back. You can go do a 3-hour course, on a Tuesday night or whatever it may be, or you can spend 5 minutes and you learn the same thing.
Right.
Because that's really what I do. From the concept of making this journey easier.
Right.
I just put it into digestible amounts, and you have the option you can go into the grammatical deep dive, or you can just take the applicable approach, and those options are there for you. But it's a very unfortunate thing, and for everyone out there who sort of hates the idea of me charging, eventually the goal is that I won't even need to be doing this anymore.
Right.
So, have your then. But eventually, I'm not going to, my mahi like this is not going to be needed. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think great space for te reo Māori to be in.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, that's cool. And and the money thing, of course, it's a tough subject for a lot of people, but at the same time too, you are using somebody else's time. And this is a kaupapa that's applicable to any form of service. Like we see the same thing with people who work in the arts and that, being undervalued. And I think it's too because, and this is why I see it come from Māori more than I think from international, it's because we have that inner need to feel like we deserve it, or we it must be ours because it's ours. So why should we pay for something that is ours, And I can see that's where a lot of that mamai comes from, I think. But people's time is still valuable, and someone's got to pay the bills, and you still gotta if you're taking time out of your day, as a kaiako, then it's got to be compensated some way.
Absolutely. Well, and quite often, the kōrero is, but, my kaumatua, they would teach me and say, well, I'm not your kaumatua.
Right.
I'm just the bro on the internet. So,
right. Yeah, cool. No, that's cool. Now, you touched on it just briefly there with a few suggestions, podcasts, books, and that sort of thing, but maybe a little bit more detail into some of your favorite external resources for learning te reo Māori, like if it's a podcast, maybe specific podcast, or if it's a book, maybe a specific book.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, what I think really, not so much te reo, but maybe a window into te ao Māori for me was definitely the Taringa podcast.
Yes.
Was awesome. I would listen to that while driving around. It used to be part of my ritual,
right?
When traveling, but now that I don't have to go anywhere much anymore, I don't really listen to podcasts or anything anymore. But that was definitely a big one for me. And as mentioned, the wakahuia videos on YouTube, YouTube. But I think what also really excelled my use and understanding of te reo Māori was even beyond, te whare wānanga waikato, was to seek out experts. I was thinking mātanga, experts within te reo, or within, the field you're looking to excel in. And for me, I was definitely privileged to come under the tutelage of Inaine, Dr. Anahahini, and the likes of Matai Kepa.
Oh, yes.
Koia. So, I was very lucky within that regard, that they took me on, and Koia helped me really excel my use and understanding of te reo.
Yeah, and I think too therein lies the potential power for people listening in of social media, like find yourself on the page, and I assume a lot of your followers are probably at some stage in their reo journey themselves, if not already relatively competent. You can make connections, for people who are listening in. You can see people in the comments who go, maybe reach out to somebody, and even if it's simple as being able to find someone that you can text to practice your reo. You know, you might live on the other side of the world, but if you have someone that you can text every day, you know, oh, ipe kia tō rā, you know, and blah, 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 you can just kind of kick up casual conversation as some way to practice, you know, because that's what I always say, is someone who has jumped around and, you know, as a musician spends a lot of time on the road, and you don't always have the luxury of being able to turn up for courses on the right time because you're in weird time zones all the time. Being able to consume Māori language in as many sort of areas as you can, you know. So obviously as a musician, a good part of that for us is music. So being able to consume Māori music, Taringa podcast has been one of my favorites as well. You know, depending on the level of your learning journey, there are lots of, you know, easy books out there that you could just carry around. And even if it's stuff you already know, at least it's a form of practice, right? A way for you to upkeep the knowledge. Because for me, at least in my experience, the learning it part for me has been relatively easy. It was the retaining it, you know, it was the being in a space to be able to keep up that knowledge. When I actually sat in the class and I listened to the teacher and I read the book and I did the work, that stuff came pretty quick. But it was the 6 months after that is where it was like, oh, how much am I going to keep and how much am I going to lose, you know? And that's because at the time I wasn't quite absorbing it in as many areas as I could. You know, Māori movies with the subtitles can be a cool way to get it as well, because that's also good for the audio apprehension, you know, because that's for me, that's where I've always struggled. I can read it relatively well, I can write it all right, you know, with the knowledge that I've got, but the minute somebody speaks to me, boom, see ya, you know, in one ear out the other. And it's like, unless I can see it on paper, it's much harder. So for me, a way to practice that has been things like film, where you can actively listen to it or watch it, or Taringa podcast, where you really just have to listen to it. So those have just been some of my favorites too, for people who are curious. Now, I've seen a few videos that you've talked about where, you know, you might go over some common misunderstandings or common sort of, what do you call it? Like, almost like a Mandela effect of sorts, you know, just things that have deconstructed for so long over a certain period. You know, let's take the weta, for example, you know, weta. I think because of the film company, it's become so colloquially understood as weta, you know, and there's a whole myriad of these things that I've seen and learnt, you know, kia ora e te whānau, you know, these sorts of things, not kia ora whānau or whatever. Just real quick, maybe for Māori who are listening in, what for you would be the sort of the most common errors like that regarding te reo Māori?
By definitely great, and you know, most people may be able to pick it just from my maybe cheeky nature. But you know, quite often when I was a tama, when I was a boy, quite being called tiko.
Right.
Quite often, little tiko. And I don't know, I don't know where or how that sort of came about, but so tiko, well, you know, to keep it G, it means, well, it was meant to mean poo.
Right.
So, you know, I'm sure you can align what that means, you know,
yes.
Poo.
Yes.
But, you know, tiko, the term tiko means is the act.
Right.
The act of pooing. Many different kupu for the thing, you know, tūtai being one of them. But that probably mean, actually, and then even before that, the actual word used was teko.
Yes.
So not tiko, it was teko. So, you know, again, I don't know how or why those kupu came about. I was only a boy.
Right.
Being called those things. Lovingly. But so that's probably one of the most common.
Yeah, and I remember that one too, because that was one that I grew up saying teko, you know, with the e. And from my experience of just like watching, for example, how my mum has tried to learn te reo Māori throughout her life, you know, as particularly I think if you're an English speaker as well, and sometimes you develop an association with, you know, the sounds that you're familiar with. One thing I've noticed that she does is she will pronounce our e as e, because she's reading an e, right? So I wouldn't be too surprised if something as simple as tiko to tiko came about because of E, and people just started going, oh, it's a E, but then when you write it out E, we go, oh, teko, and you can see how it wouldn't probably take too much for it to devolve, into a misconception like that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And it's interesting too that's like a double-layered misconception. One, you've got the actual pronunciation of the word that has been mispronounced or incorrectly used, and then the context of it not being the object but the action. And this is something that I've been trying to break down with the same interviews with the moko artists, is the use of tā moko versus moko, and tā moko, all the artists saying, is the actual act of receiving or giving moko. It's not the finished product, that's just he moko, and tā moko is the what's the verb. It's the verb, of doing it. And it's one of those ones though that then people started and still do, they colloquialize moko to tā, and so lots of the moko artists are like, well, that one's just way off. Like, we don't really care if you call it tā moko or moko, but calling it a tā doesn't make any sense, so and I'd be curious to know actually your understanding of that as an actual person who teaches reo.
Yeah, so that as well, I remember quite a few puka as well, quite a few books that would actually say tā moko,
right,
well, without the tohito, so even
right.
So yeah, actually, and I remember it was koe taninga te wharara matu te hāmua.
Oh yes.
Te hāmua, who actually, because myself from memory, I only ever used moko.
Right.
I don't remember ever using tā moko.
Right.
But I remember his video popping up and saying, it's moko. Tā moko is the act of doing it, and
right,
moko is the thing. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. And what was I going to say there? No, I might have lost that one. Oh well. But while we're on the topic of moko, I guess, obviously you also have facial moko, and so this is a question that I've asked to every guest that has moko in some form over their body. As the guy who's known for talking about it, what does moko mean to you, and what was your journey?
Pai for me, what moko is, it's, well, let's say, matawara in particular.
Yep.
It's something that, I've always wanted since I was a boy. Before understanding, it's tikanga and all of these things, I just thought it was something beautiful.
Right.
But, for me, there was a point, I would say before the real cool explosion of matawara coming through, and it was just this kōrero I had with my wahine, and it was it's just because I used to have a bit of a pāho, I used to have a bit of a beard, if you could call that thing a beard, and it was to essentially try and cover my face. Because I would say to my wife, I was like, it's real weird, just looking in the mirror and it's like a stranger staring at me.
Right.
Because looking in it, that's not me. So, I think from there I knew that, that it has to happen. But yeah, for me, it's just a part of who I am. As Māori, as a tāne. And, if I may talk about it, a big part for me was I wanted to, not that I am an amazing example, but, I just wanted to be a good example for, our boys, our men. This is he tāne Māori.
Yeah.
It's not that rubbish that we're shown. It's not that rubbish that we're told that we are. It's he papa, a husband, a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's an awesome answer too, and I really like, out of everyone I've talked to, not that I've talked to many people that have moko kanohi, of course, because that can kind of bring with it its own journey, like a very, very unique, specific journey, but that sensation of looking at yourself and going, nah, something ain't right, and me and my journey, it's not something I had beforehand, but it's something I realized afterwards, you know. All of a sudden it was like I didn't look in the mirror the next morning and think I looked any different, you know. It was like, it's just me, you know. It's what's been there. And you kind of, and even to this day I forget, oh man, it's only been 2 or 3 years or whatever it's been, you know. I'm like, what do you mean it hasn't been my whole life, you know? And it becomes such a part of you, and how you identify yourself, that now when I see the prior, I can't help but think it didn't look right, you know. Now, I remember what I was going to say, and it was regarding tohu tō. So this is always a humorous discussion for a lot of people, and just to keep it brief, but, you know, for those who don't know, the tohu tō is the macron, and I get lots of questions about this, particularly regarding my name, Tūranga. You know, what is the line above the U? What do I do with it? You know, you elongate it. Now, what's the importance of elongating it? And I'm sure as a reo teacher, you might have some humorous examples about the importance of the tohu tō or the macron to share.
Hi, absolutely. Well, you know, there's your common tauira, you know, your keke. Keke, cake, keke, armpits, and keke to creek.
Right.
So those are quite often actually, I know. I can't remember if it's a putsi. I'm not too sure if it's a. I get confused between the two quite often, but I'm pretty sure it's a flower. He ngutu kaka.
Right.
Yeah, so kaka.
Right.
He manu. Is a type of bird. He kaka. With the tohu. But quite often you see it written in ngutu kaka.
Right.
I'll use the word on pull-ups.
Yeah.
Koia. So koia tētahi. And another one quite often is te. You hear quite often te. The is one of its things, te. And quite often, you know, te, it's written as te or said as te.
Right.
So te is another term for patero.
Yeah. And that's what I always find really funny about the tohu tō examples, is they're also, for whatever reason, they're so extreme, you know. Cake, armpit, you know, flower, tulips, you know. It's like this, which is probably it's probably good in the sense that it really nails in the importance of using them. So it's probably quite fortunate that they are so drastic in their meanings, but it's always funny. And so for anyone who's curious, that is, because I get asked that all the time, what's with the little line? What's with the little line? That's what it is. You elongate the vowel and it can really change the meaning of the word. Now, just to wrap it up, I always like to sort of, what's the word? You know, pass it forward. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to start this show was to highlight those people out there that I think are doing things good for te ao Māori. You know, our Māori spaces out there in all facets of te ao Māori, whether it just be, you know, being maumoko, and the stuff that they share online is completely unrelated to things Māori, but they're maumoko, and that in itself, you know, is representing us. We've got musicians, and then, you know, people who are learning the reo, and then people like yourself who are teaching the reo. And so I always just kind of like to further it and highlight others who I may never have a kōrero with on this show. And I don't know how much you consume, I guess, social media content in your personal time, but if you do, who are some of your favorite Māori creators, or even Māori inspirations, maybe just in the space of te ao Māori, if not specifically online?
Not so much on social media. I haven't posted much as of late. But I would say, really, maybe outside of I don't know if you could call it social media, but you know, definitely the likes of Scotty Morrison.
Yep.
And the ilk of such, you know, those who have really guided me through this space, the likes of Dr. Anahahini, Matai Kepa, and this, handsome as fella that I'm talking to now. More so the likes of those ever, but you know, I'm not on social media much.
Yeah.
But you know, definitely, whether you are in the space of te reo, tiganga, mātauranga Māori, era, just being Māori, being who you are as Māori, you're doing amazing things for the space, yourself and the others like yourself, and really, I think, you know, that's just normalizing. You know, I think it would be an amazing space, an amazing event. And, you know, this was actually something that my wife and I, so my wife, you know, she also, he wahine maumoko. And, you know, a big thing for my wife and I is I wanted our tamariki and our mohopuna and, you know, those around us to think it's maybe not weird, but different.
Right.
For them to be Māori who didn't maumoko.
Right.
To be Māori who don't kōrero. Yeah. And I think what an amazing turnaround, you know, where it was Māori who did maumoko and Māori who did kōrero Māori. They were the odd ones. Right. They were the different ones. And, you know, that's what I wanted to create for our babies, and for our tamariki.
Yeah, kia ora. Yeah, that's beautiful, and that's all we hope to do, and that's, you know, that's the absolute kaupapa that I resonate with. You know, it's why I do what I do, is to just be able to bring education and awareness, you know, to those out there who either have no clue, or just for those of us who are, you know, Māori and are trying to find themselves in that space again, you know, like a time gone by. But that's us for today, bro. Tēnei te mihi nui ki a koe. Thank you so much for sitting down and taking your time to have a kōrero with me today. Just one last question, and we've kind of talked about this, but we've talked about it more in the sense of once they've started, you know, advice. But I like to wrap these up with some form of advice, so I'm going to go with, do you have any advice for someone who wants to start the reo journey, you know, that actually making that first step?
Absolutely. Well, you know, first off, I suppose, you know, please feel free to send me a message, whether it's on TikTok or you can find us on Google and all those things. Online Reo Agency, so the Online Reo Agency. And, you know, I'd be more than happy to, you know, help you, send you a few resources and all of those things. And actually, if I may put in a cheeky plug for my bro, for those of you who would like to learn a bit of te reo te nota, you know, because quite often that's one of the questions as well. Do you teach te reo te ngāpui, te reo te taitaki? No, I teach a general use of te reo.
Right.
You know, those things are made available if you want them. But if you're interested in that e wama, have a look up my bro Devin Wikaira, Whitiki, te ingo tana kaupapa, Whitiki. He tohu tō. But you can find them on TikTok as well. But, you know, I think and I suppose it's just a word of advice, I suppose, to those listening. You know, it's as long as you approach this space with good intention, and, you know, aroha, love and compassion and all those good things, you know, it's not likely that you'll get turned away. You know, as long as you approach with a good sense, and, you know, whether you write it nicely or not, we can tell. You know, we can tell as the creators, I suppose. Yeah? We can tell your intentions just through the wairua of your writing. Yeah. So if you have a good reason, I suppose, and, you know, you approach it in a good sense, you know, you'll very rarely get turned away. You know, in the likes of, and within that as well, you know, just because you have a question, it doesn't mean we're entitled to answer it. Yeah? And be okay with that. Yeah, and be okay with that, because some people may just not be comfortable sharing with you.
Right.
Right. You know, it could be the meaning of, you know, moko.
Right.
Meaning of their moko. And the likes of. But, cool.